Inside Out 2 is here, but is it even any good? Hello and welcome back to Movies Are So Back, the YouTube movie review channel where I, Ethan Simmie, ask the question, are movies so back? 9 years after Pixar gave us the original Inside Out, in my opinion, a certified Pixar classic, they have given us a sequel. They have given us Inside Out 2. And this time there are new emotions, led by Anxiety, who is voiced by the wonderful Maya Hawke. This ragtag group of complex emotions also consists of Envy, voiced by Io Adebari, Embarrassment, voiced by Paul Walter Hauser, and Ennui, or The Boredom, voiced by Adele Exarchopoulos, who is magnificent and sensational in passages. If you haven't seen that movie, please go check it out. I've seen Inside Out 2. I even went for a special occasion. We went for my daughter's 6th birthday. So I have a wonderful, happy little emotional attachment to this film already. Unfortunately, I was pretty severely disappointed by Inside Out 2. I think it is a pretty drastic step down from the first Inside Out, and an unfortunate kind of state of affairs for where Pixar is as an animation studio, coming off the heels of what I consider to be a magnificent run of films in the early 2020s, including Luca, Turning Red, and Soul. All top 5 Pixar movies, in my opinion. I said what I said, and I said the truth. Y'all just aren't ready to hear it yet. The movie, of course, has good and bad things. Let's start with the good, the voice cast. This cast is good. Io Adebari is killing it as Envy, and she's kind of operating really right now at the height of her Hollywood stardom powers. This movie comes out just a mere 2 weeks before season 3 of The Bear, one of the most highly anticipated shows of 2024 releases. So Io Adebari is in the hot seat right now, and she delivers in this movie as Envy. Side note, I just wish we got like way more of her. I'll dive into it, but like just give me so much more than what we got. Anxiety is wonderfully voiced by Maya Hawke. I think she delivers some really, really good stuff. I'm a Maya Hawke fan and supporter, so of course, naturally, I think she did a wonderful job in this movie. Now, inversely, and kind of as a counterweight, the voice cast also comes with some pretty big drawbacks. There's 2 huge movie stars missing from this voice cast from the original Inside Out. We do not get Bill Hader back as Fear, and we do not get Mindy Kaling back as Disgust. And I will just say, I felt the missing presence of Bill Hader's comedic voice fluctuations. It was very present, and a movie like this really does need it. So that was kind of a bummer. Another huge win for the movie is the emotion of anxiety. When the movie gives us time to spend with the emotion of anxiety as the core, the anchor, the pillar of the film, it works wonderfully. The representation of how powerful and commandeering and complex an emotion like anxiety can be is represented both visually really, really well and narratively really intriguingly. I also think it's kind of the perfect physical embodiment of the character. It just makes sense in this situation and really meshes with the rest of the physicality of the emotions. Huge win. I love it. The huge theme of the movie of discovering how anxiety specifically, but also these other emotions of envy, embarrassment, and ennui can shape your sense of self and your definition of a person works wonderfully. I think that is a brilliant structure for the film. Unfortunately, that's like kind of pushed to the wayside as the movie goes on, and we really ultimately fall away from that. And that is where the movie falters and really makes its biggest mistakes. We don't get any time with these new, important, complex emotions. That's the biggest miss of the movie. It feels like, minus anxiety, we just don't spend any time with any of these emotions whatsoever, and we don't see how Riley gets to spend time with these emotions either, and it is felt. Inside Out 2 clocks in at a near identical runtime to the very first film. Inside Out 2, 96 minutes long. Inside Out 1, 95 minutes long. As we know with the first film, it's completely doable to very prominently succeed in conveying how emotions make you who you are, and doing so in a very successful fashion. Inside Out 2 just doesn't do that. It ultimately feels like this movie truly recycles some of the biggest plot points and narrative hooks of the first Inside Out and just tries to push them together inside a new fancy box. As Riley is now 13 years old and discovering how these complex emotions really define her sense of self, the movie decides to, again, split up our emotion groups into different journeys, only for us to discover that the key to who Riley is can be found in the deep recesses of her mind. This movie felt like an opportunity for Pixar to do something really, really special with these really new emotions, and they just didn't do it. Now, the climax of the film undoubtedly works on kind of every level, and I kind of hate Pixar for that right now because the movie is so poor and subpar, but there's like a 7 or 8 minute stretch that I want to rewatch, and I just want to like live in because it does work so successfully. But the rest of the film ultimately feels forced and uninspired and just not new enough. There are some animation moments throughout the film that involve Riley and hockey, as well as some kind of mixed method animation that are intriguing. They do work, and I hope are a sign of Pixar continuing to push the animation boundary of what can be found in their films and really the medium as a whole. But there's also some animation and some narrative plot points that just feel ultimately anti-Pixar to me. They just do not feel like they fit, and they just weren't for me, like kind of at all. And I just didn't enjoy them whatsoever. Now, I'm recording this review on opening weekend of Inside Out 2, so I don't have official opening weekend box office numbers yet. But I think it's important to note that the film is eyeing a $150 million opening weekend. That could be the second biggest animation opening weekend of all time. Just ever. That's a big deal. At time of recording, it's just 3 days into the box office run, and it's already brought in over $100 million internationally. This is a great sign, not only for the box office, but for Pixar. It recertifies that Pixar really is the one and only ruler of the animation box office. But at what cost? I mean, reportedly, this movie cost $200 million to make, which is crazy expensive, and literally what it cost. But again, like at what cost? It's frankly a pretty poor and disappointing outing, not only from Pixar, but from the Inside Out franchise, a franchise that I call a franchise, even though there's only 2 movies right now, because undoubtedly, if this movie does well at the box office, I'm positive we will be seeing another Inside Out. Several emotions, I'm looking at you, ennui, are kind of just placed there as pseudo MacGuffins. They are just used for something at one key moment in time to move the plot forward, and the narrative is essentially Inside Out 1.2. There's also no Pixar short in front of this movie. What the heck? Honestly, I didn't have high expectations going into this movie. I wasn't even planning on seeing it opening weekend, but whatever expectations I did have were definitely not met. The entire time I was watching Inside Out 2, I just kept thinking to myself, how cool would a road trip movie between Maya Hawke and Iowa Debris be? That's not a good sign for Inside Out 2. Also, like, Hollywood, let's make that movie. So, are movies so back? Well, kind of. I'm happy for the box office, thrilled for the box office even. This is really the kind of movie that it needs. A movie that comes out with essentially zero competition during its opening weekend, that is enticing not only people, but families to come see this movie once, twice, probably 3 times. But the film is just not it. Not only does that make me worried for Pixar, but it just makes me worried for the future of the box office and what we are willing to accept as big box office successes. So movies are back, but with an asterisk. So here's hoping that in 2026, Toy Story 5 can bring us back to the quality of Pixar that we know and love. Yikes.